Today, we're talking about the idol of money. And I need to be very clear with you. My relationship with money has had its highs, it's had its lows, had its ups, and it's had its downs. I remember going to the grocery store, and the only thing that my dad, single dad, was able to afford was the kid cuisine TV dinners. I'm talking to the ones with the microwavable brownies, and that was a good day, okay? That was a good day. But then there's also times where we had plenty, where I never had to think about money and where it would come from. But sadly, in recent years, more recently than I'd like to admit sometimes, money has been something I've looked for comfort, security, and sometimes even joy. I remember recently went on vacation, and while I was there was this really cool hat store. I'm talking like wool hats, straw hats, beautiful, expensive hats. And before we were gonna go there, I decided that's where I wanna go. That's where I want to spend some time, maybe spend a little bit of money. And just kind of time went by, and we didn't really have a lot of time to go until we were going to our final meal, going to get some good tacos. And right 100 yards away from where we were eating at was that hat store. And I was like, nope, you don't need to go. You already pre-decided. You do not have to go to that hat store. You were cool not going, not spending the money. You don't need that hat. And as we were eating some lunch, me and my wife kind of got into a little bit of an argument, and I was feeling a little uneasy, and I decided that I wanted to take things into control. And so, although I couldn't control the argument, I couldn't control the outcome, what I could control was me getting something that I wanted. And so what I did is I walked across the street and I bought a hat. Because in that moment, it brought me some control, it brought me some security, and it brought me some of the joy because I felt good that I could buy it. Now, I don't say that to brag. I say that because it's actually a really, really bad example. The sad reality is we can look to money, things, possessions, security that money brings instead of God. And let me put this into perspective for myself and maybe a little bit for you. I look to a hat instead of God. I look to a hat instead of God. We can look everywhere around us, including money, instead of Jesus. And so what I hope we realize today is that the idol of money is a trap that can trip us up. But we have to look and see what God has to say about money. But let's start with a verse that many of you probably know, probably have heard before. You've probably seen it tattooed before. It's Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do all this through him. I can do all this through Christ who gives me strength. It's one of the most favorite and most famous verses that you will see. But what people don't often realize is that there's some stuff that comes before that verse, right? There is a verse in 11 and there is a verse 12. And this is what it says in Philippians 4:11 and 12 before verse 13. It says, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And then it goes on to say, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So it's interesting that whenever we talk about money, God actually is the one who says that he will give us strength for it. He'll give us strength to look not to that, but to God himself. Another verse that you have probably heard before, it says that those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Not money is the root of all kinds of evil, but for the love of money, or what we could say today, the idol of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. The idol of money is a trap that can trip us up. Let me be clear, having money is not a bad thing. Having money can be a gift. There's a lot of incredible things you can do with money, but it's the love of money that we must avoid. The love of money is what trips us and what traps us. And so as I read that Bible verse, it seems pretty clear to me. We just have to avoid the idol of money. We need to avoid the idol of money, the love for money, because that can be the thing that stands between you and God. That can be the thing that's separating you from the intimacy you want from him. That can be the thing that's separating you from the closeness that you desire. But instead, we choose having expensive things. We choose buying things when we feel uneasy. We choose being obsessed with saving because you feel secure or comfortable when you have that in your account. Or maybe it's working a job that fills your mind when you don't even have space to think about God. You know what it is for you. You know what money can bring instead of what God can bring. So my challenge for us is, how can we overcome this idol of money? That idol that trips us and traps us and that makes us wander from God. Now, as I go on this journey with you, as you heard not too long ago, here are some things that I have implemented. The very first thing is our senior pastor, Craig, talks about not chasing behavior modifications, but spiritual transformation. And so here are some 3 spiritual practices, spiritual disciplines that I and my family have engaged in to help us with this idol of money that can sometimes stand between me and God. The very first thing is frugality. So what is frugality? You probably heard people say, oh, they're such a frugal person. You probably just think cheap. But in reality, frugality is just a time to save instead of spend. And so for me, I love coffee. I love drinking coffee. I love Starbucks coffee. I love local coffee shops. And there was a season of my life where I was going and getting coffee, buying it every single day. And a lot of times it was whenever I was having a bad day, when I was upset about things, when there was something going on, and I chose to go and spend money and get this coffee instead of choosing to turn towards God. And so we are deciding to save instead of spend. That's frugality. The next one is pleasure stacking. So this sounds weird. It's kind of a weird set of words, but what's interesting about this is, like I said, I was going out and getting coffee every single day, and it became something that was normal, when in reality, it's not normal to go out and do that, to spend that much money. And so what we have decided to do is actually to save that coffee, to save that going shopping, to save that going and getting new shoes for a specific day of the week. And so instead of doing something every single day, we choose to do it one day of the week. And in that one day of the week, we're so excited to do it. And honestly, it's an overflow of worship that we get to do it, because it's not normal. It's something that's above and beyond. And our third point is hiddenness. And so hiddenness is a time where you can allow God to be the hero instead of you. And so for me, I love to be the hero. I love to be the nice guy. I love to be the good guy. I love to be the one that's seen as doing good. And for me, I've had to strip that away. And a lot of times that has to do with money, because there's situations I've seen in my life where there's been people around me who are in need. We'll talk about financials today. And there's been times where I love to go and be the hero, to take out that money out of my checking account, to give it to them to help meet that need. Because I also secretly, deep down in the rottenness of who I am, love to be seen as the person that met that need, when in reality, it's God who provided that for me. And so something that I'm exercising is, how can I remove myself from the situation? So instead of me going and taking that money out and handing it to them, why don't I use somebody else? Why don't I give that money to somebody else to give to them, so that God can be the hero, or placing it somewhere where I know that they would find it? Because in those situations, people have no one else to thank but God, and God alone, who is the ultimate provider for all things. Because what we're trying to avoid here is the love of money. We want to avoid anything that stands between us and Him, our relationship with Him, our intimacy with Him, and our love for Him. Because what I know is that at the end of the day, if you're still watching this video, there's something inside of you that wants to be a little bit closer to Jesus, to be a little bit closer to how He desires you to live this life. And so my challenge for you is to turn away from the idol of money, turn away from the idol of money, turn away from the love of money, and turn towards Christ. Because I know you'll experience God in a brand new and better way. Stay nerdy, Bible nerds.